talking. Hey everybody, and welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. I'll give you a clue who my guests are today by the earrings that I'm wearing. They're potatoes. Today's guests are responsible not only for my personal success, but I think for my professional success as well. You know, I was obese until I was 52 years old, and for the last 8 years, I have kept these 50 pounds off easily, eating as much starch, potatoes, rice, and beans as I want by following the protocol of today's guests. But more importantly, what I can thank them for is my professional success, because they are the ones that really gave me my start in the plant-based world. In the year 2000, I started teaching cooking, and I was teaching at culinary schools around Los Angeles at various Whole Foods. But it wasn't until June of 2009 when I had the honor of presenting at the last McDougall Celebrity Chef Weekend that really I started gaining, any kind of traction in the plant-based world. And now, 11 years later, I've been invited back once again to do a culinary demo, a holiday culinary demo on their new, the program's not new, but they're running it virtually online now. And it's been tremendous. We've done testimonials with the people, and I get to present for the next McDougall 12-day program, which we're going to tell you about because there's still, I think, a few spaces left. And I've created some really amazing recipes that nobody else except for people in that program are going to get. So please welcome two of my favorites, maybe my all-time favorite couple, Dr. John McDougall and Mary McDougall. It's always great to see you guys. And that view behind you is magnificent.
Oh, thank you, AJ. It's not fake either. You'll see the boats and the bridge and everything go up. And yeah, we're very fortunate. We have a nice view. Yes, you're joining the staff of the McDougall 12-day telemedicine, telehealth program, which has been a great move forward. We start this Friday, actually. So I think we have a couple of spaces open. But yeah, it's exciting to have you on board, AJ. I have to say, it's been a long road. 11 years ago when we had you talk at the Celebrity Chef Advanced Study Weekend, you didn't do it by yourself. You were with another lady, a dietitian, I remember. And you found it a little challenging that day, didn't you? You found, I would say you were a little animated. And so how'd you feel about that first presentation?
Wait. I don't ever want to correct you, but the thing is, Dr. McDougall, you're talking about the Advanced Study Weekend in February of 2011. But before that, I did present by myself in June of 2009, two cooking demos.
Oh, okay. And then you did one with the dietitian afterwards.
Right. Yeah. And then
so we had you on 3 or 4 times. I thought we only had it on twice.
Well, actually, I don't know if you remember, Dr. McDougall, but in April of 2010, when you were speaking for a conference of Dr. Neil Barnard with Dr. Dean Ornish in Universal City, California, and I had a broken knee, and actually you had a broken knee, we met in the elevator, and I said, could I come back? And you said, not for 10 years. And it was, thank goodness for Mary that I got to come back.
Well, but I think the reason why is because you were not comfortable. You were still going through dietary changes, and I think you were still a little bit angry about all the troubles you'd been through in the past. It wasn't until about 3 years later when I invited you to talk at our Advanced Study Weekend, and we went over various subjects, AJ. You were going to talk about protein, you were going to talk about fat, you were going to talk about the fat you eat is the fat you wear, and I insisted that you talk about the subject that you know best, which is about AJ. You remember that? That to me was the moment of enlightenment. That was your coming out. That was when you put everything behind you that had been so troublesome. That's the way I look at it. And you move forward to be one of the most effective people in the healthy movement there is. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're not wrong. And you really were prophetic. I mean, you wanted me to do that. Like, I thought I was going to come and just kind of give a lecture on calorie density or do a cooking demo. And you said, no, you're going to tell your story. And I feel like I was either brave or stupid because up until the night before, it wasn't even good. And something magical happened. But I do remember, and I remember getting a partial standing ovation at least.
Oh, you got a standing ovation. And anybody who hasn't seen that presentation, if you go to our website, drmcdougall.com, and you look under videos and experts, and you look under there, you'll see AJ, and you'll see the presentation she gave, an hour where people were on their feet, not just a standing ovation. You had people in tears. You had people on their feet. When you sang the potato song, there was a roar from the audience. I mean, not only was this a day of enlightenment for you, but it was a day of enlightenment for us, because so many people, I think, were relieved, AJ, to know that they did not suffer alone. They had your experiences to relate to realize not only did other people go through all kinds of significant troubles, and you'll know what I mean when you watch that video, but you were able to get out of your problems and dedicate your life to helping other people, which has been so wonderful, which I'm not going to stop complimenting you enough on, AJ. You know that I don't do very many webinar appearances. And I certainly am very careful about who I invite to teach at our program. We have Doug Lyle and Jeff Novick and Jack Dixon and lots of very, very talented people. So you must know, I think, an awful lot of you, to have you not only teach at our program, but to have you back and to not only be willing, but excited about appearing with you every chance I get. We're a team, AJ. We are a team. Tell me.
I'm so lucky.
What would you say was the biggest asset you have? And I want you to start with Charles.
Yeah, well, he is, because Charles is my Mary, and people like with our person, we are cut from the same cloth. I'm surprised we're not related, because I'm a tiny bit softer, but we're pretty much the same personality. So thank God we have a Mary and a Charles, because otherwise, like, who else would marry us, right?
Really. People don't know how true that is. And when you get to meet Charles someday and you get to meet Mary someday, you'll see what compliments they are to both of these runaway people. We are just uncontrollable, AJ. I mean, you plug us in and turn us on, and we can't be stopped. I know what's going to happen when you teach for our program, which, by the way, starts this Friday. I cannot believe it. We've been running one of these programs every month, filling it up, and the responses we've gotten have been so encouraging that we hopefully we can run one every two a month.
Well, and we've had people that have come to both programs.
To the live-in program.
Both the live-in program and the online program, and they prefer the online program because they say it helps them feel really ready after 12 days to keep on going. They learn so much.
There's no matter of going home from Santa Rosa, California, having to face all of the fast food restaurants in the airports, and then go home and start anew gathering food. We work, both Corey and Tiffany, they go into people's homes, into their kitchens, get food started for them even before the program starts. Dr. Anthony Lim, he sees people and gets them off their medications before the program even starts. Now, the day you sign up is the day we start managing your medical care. And that whole 12 days is dedicated to inspiring education by very personal people like yourself. I'm excited, AJ. I really am excited to have you part of the team.
I can hardly wait to see your demo.
Well, I made up a new, okay. Well, here's the thing. I'm doing 6. I heard from Heather this morning. I'm going to get her the recipes this afternoon. I'm doing 6 recipes, and every single recipe, whether it's a dessert or an appetizer or a beverage or a vegetable, it has a potato in it. And that's what I wanted to make sure. So even the dessert, and the dessert is, I call it the ultimate pumpkin pie, because I don't like pie and I don't like pumpkin. And this is like literally the best thing I've ever eaten. And only the people that come to your program are going to get this recipe. I'm not going to share it with anybody else, or at least not right away, because it's just for you guys. So I cannot wait. It's all potatoes all the time. But yeah, thank you so much. I mean, I don't know. I hope you know how much I appreciate you both and how much you've done for me. And I've tried to articulate that over the years. I mean, you've done so much for so many people for over 40 years, but for me personally and professionally, I mean, I'll never forget all you've done for me. And I'm grateful every day that I look in the mirror. So, I mean, why couldn't I have listened to you sooner? Why couldn't my family, who's all dead now, we had your books. This is the weirdest thing. Somehow we had your books on our shelves, but you can't just have the book. You actually have to read the book and do what it says.
AJ, we're trying to figure out ways to get people more interested in what we're doing. And of course, bringing you on board is a big plus for us. What do you think is the biggest selling point of the McDougall program? And I ask that because Heather has asked me to deliver a very uplifting message to people out there about what we're doing. And what she wants me to do is deliver a message on getting off drugs. Do you know that the average person, Mary's in my age, is on 4 to 5 medications a day, and as many as 12 different medications they've taken by the time they've reached our age. And our research, AJ, shows that we can get nearly 90% of people to reduce or stop all of their medications. And I think, to me, that is the biggest promotion, because we're the only place in town where the doctors, the whole staff, are dedicated to getting you drug-free. I even thought, when I was in Honolulu, starting my practice, I thought about putting advertisements in the Honolulu Advertiser that said, guaranteed, I can get you off all your drugs. And we were going to offer them a money-back guarantee. Do you think that would be a wise or unwise thing to do, to offer a money-back guarantee that we will get you off all your medications and you'll meet the criteria that are usually set as being healthy or adequately controlled, et cetera? In other words, we'll get you off your blood pressure medications. You'll meet the American Heart Association blood pressure levels that they find are acceptable and a no need of medication. I would give people a money-back guarantee for that. What do you think, AJ? But of course, they'd have to agree to eat your potato dishes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there was a way. I think you totally could. There would just have to be a way to enforce it, because last time.
Yeah, but AJ, I deal with people on a whole different level. I deal with people, and Heather mentioned that too. I deal with people from the point of view that I assume they're going to be honest, because I am. And so, I never want to be in a conscious state where I'm suspect of other people and their honesty. So I would go into this relationship of, I guarantee we will get you off all your unnecessary medications if you'll follow the program. Money back guarantee. I don't know whether I'm going to get away with that or not, AJ. Heather seems to think I'll go broke, with 90% of people being able to reduce or stop basically all their medications, particularly the ones for diabetes and high blood pressure.
Unnecessary medications.
Unnecessary medications, right.
Well,
most of them are unnecessary.
Zena's watching live, and she said she went to your program 18 years ago and has been off all of her medications since.
Yeah. And she was a young woman 18 years ago. I had to mention she's kind of in our age group now. a little younger.
Yeah, no, she's a little younger, thank God. Yeah. You should see all the wonderful comments about you guys. I think what the best thing is about your program, in addition for getting off the medicine, is it's the only program where you can actually eat food. And delicious food. You teach people, thanks to Mary's delicious recipes, she really did pave the way with this way of eating, because there may have been low-fat recipes back then, but they didn't taste good until Mary's.
Now, as I say it, Mary is the inventor of low-fat vegan cooking. Prior to Mary's introduction of this style of cooking, which happened, the story. I was a young doctor. I was taking care of patients. I didn't know what to feed them. I didn't have any recipe for them. And I asked Mary to step up. And of course, our family had to eat this way too. We couldn't ask people to eat foods that we didn't try and eat and find acceptable. And so Mary put together the first low-fat vegan. Prior to that, there was low-fat, which was skinning your chicken and buying skim milk. That was your low-fat diet. And vegan was swimming in buckets of olive oil.
And vegetarian was all cheese and eggs.
And a few chickens. We had
not vegetarian.
We had pesco vegetarians, which are fish-eating vegetarians. Yeah. And probably pollo-eating vegetarians, chicken-eating vegetarians. People really, they'll stretch it any way they can. But anyway, you're right. Mary put together the first low-fat vegan cooking, and now there are just dozens, if not hundreds, of websites of low-fat vegan cooking. Yeah. All right, AJ. You mentioned, to me as a doctor, the most appealing thing about my relationship with patients is I get to allow them to help them to be free of the medical business, to not have to focus on doctor's appointments every month or 2 or 3, not have to focus on whether you have to remember to take the blue pill or the red pill or the orange pill at certain times of the day, not have to worry whether the next shoe is going to drop, because it's gonna. After all, you got diabetes, you got high blood pressure, you got heart attack, you got breast lumps. When is the next shoe going to drop? I wanted to free people from that kind of burden. Just like I've told you many times, the worst times in my life is when I've had attorneys working for me. Worse yet would be to have morticians working for me. I don't want doctors working for me. So, but you said the appeal of our program, which you've embraced and expanded upon and enhanced in many ways, the biggest appeal is you get to eat delicious foods. Tell me more about that.
Well, that's the thing, because every other dietary style that I've ever, because there's somebody on here watching saying that they lost some weight doing a weighing and measuring program, and you can absolutely lose weight anyway. But if what you do isn't delicious, if it isn't sustainable, it won't be permanent. So counting calories, counting carbs, counting points, weighing and measuring your food and taking a food scale with you, I mean, to me, it's ridiculous, because you can't do that the rest of your life. But if you can eat from the McDougall magical buffet of starches like potatoes, rice, beans with some fruits and vegetables, that is sustainable. It's delicious. It's the way we're supposed to eat. But we have come so far away from that, and we keep moving farther away with books like Eat Fat, Get Thin. And it's just your message, which, by the way, I have everywhere. I have it on everything.
I was just going to hold one up too.
I have it everywhere around the house.
Yeah.
It's so easy to understand, but it keeps getting either diluted or bastardized because somebody else has a better way, eat nuts. And I mean, it's so easy, but they just can't believe it in its simplicity. And yet people still think potatoes make you fat. Potatoes make you thin. That's all I eat. I eat 3 pounds of potatoes a day. It's crazy. It's so sad until people actually, that's why what's so great about your program is if they're willing to do an experiment for the 12 days and they're doing it with medical care, not just from Dr. Lim, but they have Dr. Lyle on the team so that he can assure them that it's going to work. I think that's just beautiful.
Well, it's interesting how people can deny the obvious, like the fat you eat is the fat you wear. I mean, where else would it go? But that's the way human nature is. After all, we can deny the existence of an entire pandemic of COVID-19 and say, the cure is right around the corner. And, people believe what they want to believe, AJ, is what I'm trying to say. Not speak politics, even though it is relevant, isn't it?
Well, I'm saying nothing to that.
No, I know you're not. But
you see, Dr. McDougall, even though I'm like you in so many ways, I'm a little bit of a wuss, because I remember once you said something, because all your sayings I remember, there should be a book of them, but you once said, I would rather be hated than ignored. I would rather be ignored. See, you're much stronger to criticism than I am.
Well, I only have one life to give, so to speak. And if I go through it being ignored, which is the way I've been dealt with, my entire life is I've been dealt with by the dairy industry and the meat industry and my colleagues by, hey, look, just keep shoving money in the bank. That's all they care about. So he hasn't heard it's just like the guy, I had this one very good friend who wrote about mammographies and went around the country. He was one of the most famous epidemiologists in all of Canada. And he went around the country lecturing about how mammography got women into a lot of trouble, caused more mastectomies, did not save lives, et cetera. And he told me, he said, after one of his conferences, a radiologist came up to him and said, look, buddy, I want you to know you're now in my pocketbook, and that counts. And he almost stopped lecturing. But, I just don't really care, to tell you the truth. Maybe it's because I have such a nice spouse and such good friends like you. I don't really care. It shows, doesn't it, that I don't care.
Yeah, but I think when people disrespect you, like there was that weird thing with that weird doctor. I mean, that I feel bad. Maybe not for you, but it hurts me.
Which weird doctor was that?
That one weird.
Where people were taking a sign bite because you were wagging your finger, but they were Franken editing, and they took a sound bite and they were saying you had dementia because you didn't eat any.
At least they're talking about me, AJ. Again, that was one saying that, do you remember my saying, you can write my name on toilet walls as long as you spell my name right and get my phone number correct. I don't really care. I have such an important message that is really a matter of not only saving people's lives, but their family and their community and planet Earth. You had a chance to hear my presentation last Thursday night at the ACLM meeting.
That was a wonderful conference. And honestly, you and the other legends like Dr. Ornish, Dr. Esselstyn, and Dr. Campbell, you guys were the highlight of the whole conference.
Well, we've heard that mentioned, and I hope I set the tone for it because, I told my colleagues, the members of ACLM, which are 5,000 in number, an organization that I helped found in 2004. The primary director for that was a fellow named John Kelly. But we founded this organization in 2004. Mary and I helped them financially get off the ground.
You should tell them what ACLM is.
So American College of Lifestyle Medicine, Mary. Anyway, we founded this organization and we built this army of 5,000 people. And what my challenge to them is that not only do all of us know we can cure chronic disease, because they all know by now, after 16 years rubbing elbows with me and Ornish and Esselstyn, Colin Campbell, et cetera, and you, AJ, and helping people get well. They don't deny anymore the statements that I made that, basically 80% of the illnesses I see are caused by diet. Obesity, heart disease, diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis, constipation are caused by diet. And almost all of these are cured by what we eat. These 5,000 members that I was talking to last Thursday night on the 22nd of October knew, because of their experiences, that you can cure chronic diseases by just fixing the food. What I introduced to them on Thursday night, some of them, a lot of them knew already, was that the chances of progressing to serious manifestations of COVID-19, like hospitalization, the requirement for mechanical ventilation, drowning in your own fluids, and death, dependent upon how healthy you are and whether or not you have a previous history of heart disease, diabetes, obesity. I mean, the CDC and the Chinese government and the British Medical Journal, they've all come out and said that basically only those who progress to serious illness are those that are sick from eating the Western diet. And I believe, not only can you prevent going on this course, but even after people get sick, I would tell folks out there that listen, if you come down with a sore throat, bad cough, and things aren't looking good, maybe now's the time to change your diet. I bet it'll help you even then. In 7 days, we get these phenomenal results. We drop cholesterol 22 points, 7 days. Anyway, we brought to light the acute problem that everybody's worried about. I mean, good grief, what did we reach? 90,000 new cases, almost 100,000 new cases today.
That's amazing.
Right around the corner. Anyway, people are aware that this has caused us to be in a mode for change. Everybody is aware that the world is changing. They're all set to adapt. And the ACLM members, I pointed out to them, you have an opportunity to get people's attention. They know things are going to be different. They know we're not going to have a future like the past. We don't want a future like the past, believe me, folks, because the past was a future destined for destruction within the next 6 to 16 years. Planet Earth is done. So I talked to them about this, and what I pointed out to them, they didn't want to hear it, AJ. All 5,000 members, you won't tell any of them that I said this, but they didn't want to hear it. But I said on several occasions, what is the reason behind training all these doctors to practice lifestyle medicine when soon we'll be trying to practice on a dead planet? I mean, what kind of a medical office are you going to be opening on a dead planet? How many patients are you going to be seeing on a dead planet? And it's amazing how little reaction I got from them. I think it's just too overwhelming. But again, that's just part of my personality. I'd rather be hated than I'd rather be
ignored.
I'd rather be hated than. You believe I don't care, AJ, and that's why I befriend you so much.
You have a thick skin. Somebody that's watching live is commenting that they had the gastric sleeve and now they can't eat the way you recommend. And when you think about it, the McDougall program, it really is this. It is like having gastric bypass because you don't change the size of your stomach, you change the size of the food.
AJ, I've had many patients in the past who've had various kinds of procedures, sleeves and bands and Roux-en-Y procedures and, gastric bypasses and intestinal bypasses and so on. There's a Star McDougall on our website, drmcdougall.com. His name is Michael Wilson. And Mike Wilson was one of our patients, maybe 40 years ago he started. He's still alive, still well. And he was on 25 different drugs, weighed 450 pounds. He was so sick that he was afraid he couldn't play with his 2 kids that were 9 and 11 years old. He lived in Hawaii, and in Hawaii, they had small streets back then, and The only thing he could fit in was a Lincoln Town Car. I mean, there were all kinds of obstacles in Mike Wilson's way. He'd had gastric bypass surgery or intestinal bypass surgery. And even then, he was able to figure a way to eat around it to stay fat and sick. Well, we started taking care of him a long time ago. And there's some before and after pictures that'll knock you right off your seat. So just because you've already been through these traumatic surgeries is no excuse for you to not eat the right kind of diet. Example, if you have a racehorse that's vying for the Kentucky Derby and it breaks its leg, you put it on cat food?
No.
You put it on racehorse food, right? It's the same thing with you. No matter what happens to you, even if you get rearranged by a surgeon, it's still the best food for you as a starch-based diet with fruits and vegetables. The diet you and I teach, AJ, that Mary has grounded us in the kitchen for, the diet we teach is the most nutritious diet it is.
And delicious.
It has more vitamins, minerals, other nutrients than any other meal plan ever designed. And it's right for people.
Yeah. So Christine, who is watching live, Christine Ben says, Dr. McDougall's program is worth every penny. It will blow your mind. Such great positive environment and support.
Well, that's what people have found with the telemedicine program. We'll never go back. I can tell you right now, if everything was solved, we had a vaccine. Don't hold your breath. If we have a vaccine. I mean, I want a vaccine too. I really do. I would like to get back to normal. We haven't seen our grandkids in 9 months. It's been painful. And I would like this to be solved too, but not without retaining the message that we have a planet to save. But even if we were to go back, AJ, and our resort in Santa Rosa was to open back up again, and we had crowds of people that wanted to come, I would not run a live-in residential program again. Why? Well, we were able to cut the cost from $6,000 to less than $2,500. Not bad, cheap. And we're able to take and bring the education into people's houses. And people tell us over and over and over again that the program we teach now is so much more effective.
And I think they even get more support.
They get more support, but even the results of our weight losses are better. Our cholesterol drops are better. It is a mode, a method of modern times. We are not going back. Never.
I don't blame you. Hey, Mary, would you mind answering a question if it's not too personal? People are wondering if you've ever, people are wondering if you ever talked about like what beauty care and skincare products you like and what you use.
My favorite skincare products are made by Shikai, Shikai, and they have a face cream and they have a body lotion, and I use them all the time. And you can buy them in Whole Foods. You can buy them you can buy them online. And
same place I get my face creams.
Yeah, people are commenting that you guys that you have no wrinkles on your hand, Dr. McDougall, and they want to know how old you are. I think you're 74. Is that
73,
right?
73. Mary's 74. I married an older woman.
And it's funny because I'm older than Charles. See again.
Yeah, well, we had to pick somebody a little more resilient than we are, AJ. Good grief. Seriously, unless you are married to a Charles or a Mary, you don't realize what a gift you were given. Because otherwise, our lives would be in such disarray, wouldn't they, AJ?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So you're telling me the fact that you get to eat all the food you want, stay healthy, look great. And by the way, not only do you look healthier, you look a lot younger than when I first met you, AJ. I mean,
Thank you.
People see that all over the place.
and what I have found is that you have taken the starch idea and you have created some fantastic recipes that I haven't even thought of yet, and you come out with these wonderful tasting recipes. And 20 years ago you couldn't find a recipe on the internet for anything healthy, and even the recipes that I have done, you've made some fantastic things that I really enjoy eating.
Thank you. And I try to put starch, like if I'm making a dessert, I don't think sugar, flour, oil. I think what starch can I base the dessert on? Millet, rice, sweet potato. So I just think starch, I'm it's the best. It's the, and the other thing is without starch, this is what people don't understand. You can lose weight, but you have no satiety. You can eat
Yeah.
fruits, and I eat a lot more vegetables probably than you, Dr. McDougall, because I think they improve my skin, and I think they kind of dilute the overall caloric density of my meals, but I don't go crazy eating them. Most of my calories come from starch. I probably eat 3 pounds of starch and 2 pounds of vegetables. But without starch, you're always going to be hungry. And what kind of dietary style can you maintain if you're hungry all the time?
And consider that all large populations of people throughout all of verifiable human history have obtained the bulk of their calories from starch. Like the Aztecs and Mayans were known as the people of the corn. Potato eaters were the people of the Andes, and later on Western Europe after the 1700s. In Asia, you think about rice. 90% of the diet in Asia came from white rice up until 1980, and they had no obesity, no type 2 diabetes. What did I say? But by 1980, 90% of the diet came from white rice. White rice, evil white. I get a good kick out of that.
I know. People now today, they don't want to eat rice because they're afraid of arsenic. I do eat white rice. I'm not scared to eat. I love it. I think it tastes better, to be honest. Do you remember, Dr. McDougall, when you spoke at the Healthy Lifestyle Expo? That's where I actually first saw you guys. It was in 2001, I believe, the very first time Jeff Nelson put on this fabulous event. And you said about how if a population ate a vegetable-based diet, they'd rape the, I don't know what you said, but you got a lot of people upset by what
that's where I was talking to Joel Furman, whose name we never mention on this website. I was talking to Joel Furman, and he was teaching that you should limit. Joel's a great guy. He's done a lot.
No, I love Joel. I do.
No, don't misunderstand what I'm saying. And Joel was promoting a limited starch diet, 1 cup of beans a day. And otherwise, you need to shun starch. And what I explained to him and anybody else who wants to teach this no starch diet is, imagine throughout history if any population tried to do this. Say a village of people, they got this wise idea they were going to eat a diet based on lettuce and cauliflower and celery and pea pods, etc. What would happen? Well, within a few days, certainly within a few weeks, they'd become so weak, the men could not defend the village. And the neighboring village would come over and kill the men and rape the women. You'd be done. Dr. Furman really didn't have much to answer when I told him that.
They didn't like that as much.
It's not only is it not a sustainable diet, it's never happened in all of history. No one has lived on a nutrient-dense diet of broccoli, cauliflower, lettuce, and kale. Never happened. Never could happen. Even if it was the right thing to do, these kinds of foods would not allow you to produce enough calories per acre of land to supply the needs of even a small population. These are very, very low calorie foods, very expensive to grow. Whereas starch, like rice, corn, and potatoes, are nothing. Really, really easy to grow. You can grow them in almost all latitudes. They grow in muddy water and dry land, and so it's particularly potatoes I'm talking about now. So, as sooner you get to the truth, you are a starch-eating, starchitarian, starchivore, and you live on a starch-based diet, the faster you get into control. You know what I wanted to do, AJ, if you don't mind me interrupting, you like to hear about our early life. And Mary's never done it before, but I'd like to ask her to spend just a couple of minutes of talking about what life was like in her kitchen in the sugar plantation house where we used to shop up in Honokaa.
Well, the sugar plantation house, we hadn't really even
we started to change our diet.
We
We
ate
from regular beef to range-fed beef.
Range-fed beef and organic foods and
we were in this little country town with a general store.
Not much choice.
Mm-hmm.
So but they did sell a lot of white rice, big bags of white rice.
Mm-hmm.
But they always sold.
Well, that was Hiroshima's market.
Oh no,
Kanashiro's market.
Kanashiro's.
But you used to. Did they have bulk bins in that market? You remember that?
I think they did, some of them.
And then we moved to Kailua, Hawaii, where we really made our dramatic changes. And still then, I mean, you used to go to what, Earth Save? Or
Earthseed was the
Earthseed, yeah.
first natural food store that I went to, and it was in Kailua, Hawaii. And we made friends with the owners. And you walked into the store, and it was filled with these big tubs of beans and grains and grain flakes and all these kind of things that I had never seen before, and I didn't know what to do with. And so I would actually talk to the owner, whose name was Jan, and I would say, well, what do you do with this? And I'd get some ideas, and I'd bring these things home, and John would look at them and say, we're going to eat that. And I'd say, well, I'm going to try and make it into this. And sometimes it worked, and sometimes it didn't work so well. But they didn't have all the junk, the vegan junk that you can buy in the stores today. These were just bins of whole food. You didn't need a label. You didn't have to know how to read labels. They were just, individual kinds of beans and peas and lentils and different kinds of rices and grains. That's how I started, just playing around with these foods.
Plus, we were in a very accepting environment, living in Hawaii back in the 1970s and 80s. We had a very large population of Asian people, particularly Japanese, and they were very rice oriented. To live on a diet predominantly of rice was in no way strange back in the 70s and 80s in Hawaii. And then we had the Hawaiians who still maintained a tradition of poi eating, taro eating. And, so it was not such an unfamiliar environment. And of course, we came from a place in central U.S., Central America, from Michigan. We're both from Michigan, where if it didn't walk or swim, it wasn't food.
Well, yeah. Well, when we moved to Hawaii, I didn't even know how to cook rice. And luckily, every store that you walked into in Hawaii, every grocery store or supermarket, or even every Japanese store that you walked into sold rice cookers. So I bought a rice cooker, and that's how I learned to cook rice. And I found out that rice cookers cook a lot more than rice, because when we moved to the plantation, we didn't even have a stove. And so I would cook all of my food inside my rice cooker and try and make dishes from that.
Yeah, we started out with 2 lawn chairs and a mattress. Like many of you, that's how we started. But it was a very accepting environment. And that was a time when the Asians had very low risk of getting breast cancer, colon cancer, prostate cancer. It was just a time when the Filipino was starting to enjoy the American diet. And then subsequently, they developed the Filipinos developed a population with the highest incidence of gout of any population in Hawaii. The Chinese were still eating rice back then. They soon developed a population living in Hawaii where they had the highest incidence of cancer of all racial groups. The Chinese did. So it was in a time of dramatic change from starch eaters to people who wanted to be more like Americans, traditional Americans. And we were lucky. I don't know that I would have been able to thrive if I'd have stayed in Michigan. In Hawaii, I was in a situation where a lot of things were accepted that were different.
Well, you wouldn't have learned the things.
No, I wouldn't have had the plantation experience. But I also used to play the race card. I used to play the race card on my patients. They'd come in and say they were Hawaiian or Japanese or Chinese or so on. And we'd sit and talk. And I would ask them, okay, are grandma and grandpa still living? They'd say, yeah. Well, how old are they? Well, they're 90. I mean, how are they doing? Well, they're working out in the garden. Well, what do they eat? You see, I had that kind of knowledge in my patients already. They knew grandma and grandpa ate primarily rice or taro or breadfruit and were active into their 90s. They knew that. And then what I did is I played the racial card on them. I would say to them, look at what the white man's diet has done to you. Whoa. Then I got their interest, but I still couldn't get them to eat brown rice. They wouldn't eat brown rice, AJ, because brown rice was a cultural thing. Poor people, dirty people, peasants ate brown rice. Clean, refined people ate white rice. So I decided I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to allow that to be a barrier. So early in my career, I learned to put the brakes on animal foods and oils, and to tell them, look, I understand you don't want to be a dirty person or an inferior class person by eating brown rice, which peasants eat. I know you want to be a refined person and eat white rice, so go ahead and do it. I don't care. And I really only cared a little bit. I did care a little bit, but not much.
It's funny, Dr. McDougall, I don't know if you remember, before the pandemic, I was teaching at a spa that I have the luxury of teaching at once or twice a year called Rancho La Puerta. And who shows up in my cooking class but a gentleman named Bill, a Japanese man, who was your patient in Hawaii over 40 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and one of the greatest rewards I get, AJ, and what I want to appeal to your audience with is this message. I feel real good about how people do during our 12-day program, either the residential program we ran for 34 years, or now the telemedicine program. I'm thrilled that you lost 5 pounds, 6 pounds, 8 pounds, and ate as much as you wanted, or you got off all your blood pressure, your diabetic medications. I'm thrilled, but not really thrilled, just a little thrilled. What I'm really thrilled about is if I hear from you in 6 weeks or 6 months or 6 years or 60, no, boy, I'm not that old, but pretty close, 40 years later, and you write to me, and I get one of these emails once or twice a month. Somebody will write to me and say, hey, I heard you lecture at St. Francis Hospital, or I attended a cooking class you and Mary taught at the Pacific Academy in Honolulu. And I listened to what you had to say, and I want you to know, I spend my time working. I spend my time playing with my kids and grandkids. My friends, if they're still alive, have disability stickers and are in assisted living homes. Thank you. And I really feel like I did my job because I permanently made a difference in people's lives. AJ, if you haven't gotten to that long-term reward yet, it's coming.
Yeah. Do you ever keep in touch with Dr. Shintani, who you said
all the time. He writes, but Dr. Shintani, I sold him my medical practice in 1986 for $1. Yeah, and I don't know whether he got a deal or he got chipped, but I did that. I sold him my practice, and then I came to St. Helena in California, and Mary and I moved with the family there between 86 and 87. That's kind of interesting. About that time, I was fighting to stop mutilating breast cancer surgeries done. And I'd written a paper on the dietary treatment of breast cancer published in the journal Breast. And I got involved in legislation in Hawaii, which would force doctors to tell women that regardless of how mutilating their surgery is, it doesn't make any difference as to whether they have their whole breast cut off or half their chest with it, or they just have the lump taken out. They'll survive the same length of time. And so I got the third law passed in the state of the United States called informed consent. First was in Boston, second one was in California. The third informed consent law, single-handedly, I was a young doctor. I had no fear for my life. And I got this law passed. And I also wrote the brochure, which, by the way, if any of you have a copy of the brochure, I'd appreciate it because all my brochures went up in the fire 3 years ago. Anyway, I wrote this brochure, and, I thought that I'd done a big service, good service for the community in Hawaii, the physicians, and certainly the women by giving them an opportunity to understand the gravity of the treatment decisions they were making. And I thought that I kind of got home free until I tried to get malpractice insurance the next year. And this is a story I've never told, AJ, so you'll enjoy this one. I can't imagine. I was embarrassed. The next year, I couldn't get malpractice insurance after I passed that law. Even though I had never had a complaint against me, and to this date, the only complaint I've had against me is from Veronica Atkins, Robert Atkins' wife. Otherwise, I've had no complaints against Hollywood, for 45 years of practice. But anyway, the next year I couldn't get malpractice insurance, which meant I lost my hospital privileges. See, because you have to have malpractice to practice in the hospital. So I could no longer practice in the hospital. And I had to make a decision. I had a wife and 2 children that had to pay the rent for and decide what to do. And I had the decision of either suing my colleagues, the doctors, by the way, there were two boards that determined whether you could get malpractice insurance or not, both manned by doctors. I could have sued them and won and spent all my energy, all my money at winning a lawsuit against my colleagues. Or I could just practice bare, which is what I did for 2 years. I practiced without any malpractice insurance. It turned out okay, but that was one of the more interesting battles that I was in that I'd be happy to repeat.
And you were still taking people off medicines.
Oh yeah.
And practicing the same way.
Still the same old guy. 90% of people will get off your drugs. Which again, do you think I should take out an ad in the Portland newspaper or the Boston Globe or something that says, guaranteed, I will get you off your drugs if you will follow my program. Money back guaranteed. I don't know whether I'm going to be that bold to do that or not, but I might. I've always wanted to do that. What do you think, AJ? Should I do that?
Well, I think you should, but the thing is how do we reach these people that they just not getting the message? They're saying, well, I can't eat rice. I can't eat potatoes. I'm a type 1 diabetic. I'm a type 2 diabetic. Did you actually know Walter Kempner?
I didn't get to meet him because he would not allow even his photograph to be taken. And I had a television show back then called Lifestyle Magazine that I was co-host from with, and we went around the country. I filmed Dennis Burkett. I filmed Nathan Pritikin. I, filmed all of my heroes. But when I tried to go to Duke, to Durham, North Carolina, where the Rice program was held by Walter Kempner. Walter Kempner, the Rice program was the main financial support of Duke University for 2 decades. They were there for 7 decades. They said, no, Walter Kempner will not allow you to do an interview with him, will not allow you to film him. But now this is a guy, Walter Kempner, who came from Germany in the 1930s, who had accomplished all the things that I've accomplished. Here it is, 2020. Before I was even born. He knew all the stuff before I was born in 1947 that I know today. And he knew things that doctors today still claim are untrue. He knew that wasn't true. He knew, even though your doctor may say diet has nothing to do with heart disease, that was wrong. Your doctors today say that. Your doctors today say more protein, the better. He knew back then that was dangerous. Your doctors will say sugar, carbohydrate makes you diabetic. He knew back then it was actually the opposite. His diet was 93% sugar, white rice, fruit juice, and table sugar. And he would cure type 2 diabetes at the same rate that we do now, which is nearly 100%. So yeah, anyway, Walter Kempner did one kind thing to me. One of my patients went to the Rice program in Duke. And she had a private meeting with Walter Kempner. She came back and told me about it. She said, well, she was talking about me and my program and so on, and to Walter. And Walter Kempner says, hey, come on back here. I'm going to show you something.
Oh, I was going to ask you about that. Was that the picture?
Huh?
Was that the picture? Go
What's
ahead.
that? Oh, anyway, she said, come on back here. I want to show you something. And Walter Kempner took my patient back into the back room and opened this blue book called McDougall's Medicine, A Challenging Second Opinion. He says, look here. That doctor wrote about me, 2 paragraphs. He understands how the importance of the work I'm doing. Nobody else would do this, would talk to me about me like this. Walter Kempner was just so important. He gave a presentation for the American Medical Association in New York in the 1940s. And he gave this presentation that showed cure before and after pictures. He showed eye grounds that showed cure of diabetic retinopathy. Something that still is not accomplished by any means other than a dietary change. And a doctor in the audience stood up and said, you switched the order of the slides. And Walter Kempner said, I will never talk to you again. And he didn't. And there are days, AJ, when I feel the same way, but I'm not going to stop talking to my colleagues. Be prepared.
Dr. McDougall, remember the story you told about, I guess it was maybe a superior when you were going to branch out and do more lifestyle medicine, and he said, you're going to starve.
Oh, yeah, that was my chief of medicine, yeah.
Is he still alive? Did he see that?
No, Irv Schatz is dead. He died about 5 years ago, but he was a great chief of medicine. He was the man who supervised my internal medicine residency. He's the man who had to deal with other doctors complaining about this young doctor telling patients that diet has something to do with their problems. I got called in the office. I almost got thrown out of residency twice.
Yeah, were you always irascible? I mean, even growing up, high school, I mean,
AJ, I almost got thrown out of medical school twice one was challenging the assistant dean. It's a very interesting story. When Mary was having babies, I got the first hospital in Hawaii to change the practices surrounding birth. First of all, I got the first hospital in Hawaii, our hospital, to allow husbands in the delivery room. The second thing I changed is they would take the babies from the mothers right after birth and put them in this cold, remember that room?
Yeah.
Cold glass, no flowers, no pictures, nothing. Put these little babies in this cold room away from the mothers.
In these little plastic baskets.
Yeah, really. So the first hospital in Hawaii that insisted the baby stay with the mother. And they did. And the rest of the hospitals changed course after that. So yeah, I've been a pain in the ass. Excuse me. I've been ruffling feathers for a long time, AJ. You put me in a situation and I'll make it different.
And he was that way when he was a little boy too, I hear.
Did your chief of medicine ever ultimately see that you were successful practicing lifestyle medicine?
I don't know. I really don't know. See, I didn't really give my final challenge to him until I had my ticket in my hand. You see, one thing is once you get an education, nobody can take it away from you. I became a board certified internist and nobody can take that away from me. They can take my license away from me, but they can't take my education away from me. So I got my ticket in my hand and I went into his office the last day of my residency. I'd already graduated now, so I knew I could get away with anything I wanted to get away with. And he said to me, he said, John, he says, I really like your family. It was Mary and Heather and Patrick at that time. But I'm afraid you're going to starve to death with all your crazy ideas about food. All you're going to collect is a bunch of bums and hippies. So here I sat in his office and I said to him, I said, look, I've got to look myself in the mirror. I said, I can't send people off to surgeries. I can't put them on drugs that I know will do them more harm than good. I said, but I think you're wrong. I don't think it'll be bums and hippies that I collect. As I pointed toward his prospering abdomen, Dr. Schatz, I said, I think it's going to be successful people that I collect. People who along the way said, look at me, I'm such a big success. I've got such a great education, built such a wonderful family, have such a wonderful moral upbringing in our church. I'm just so big successful. How come I'm such a failure in my health? How come I'm so fat? How come I'm so sick? Why am I a failure when everything else in my life is success? And I told my chief of medicine, I said, when these people say that, I'm going to be there. And I'm going to tell them this set of rules that allow them to accomplish success in their health. Always. Because they've corrected the problem. It's the food, AJ.
And it's always been the food. Speaking of the food, Mary, there's a question from Peggy. Are there any of the thousands of recipes you created that you're just really in love with or are especially proud of?
Oh,
mashed potatoes?
Mashed potatoes. Man, we make mashed
plain
potatoes.
Mashed potatoes.
Mashed potatoes and creamy gravy. We make a lot. And we really like this one dish I make with, what's it called? Lima bean surprise.
Oh, we had that last night.
Yeah.
2 nights ago.
And I like that one, but instead of making it with lima beans, now I make it with shelled soybeans because I can't find frozen lima beans in Portland. So I make it with edamame, the shelled ones, the frozen shelled edamame, and cabbage and rice and frozen corn, and then some seasonings, and that's all. So it takes, 10 minutes to make. And so I do use some time-saving things, like I do use frozen rice, and I put it in my microwave, and it's done in 3 minutes. Otherwise, I'll make a big pot of rice, and if I know I'm not going to use it all, I'll freeze individual packages and then reheat them in the microwave so I can have it easily available. So we keep it fairly simple.
Yeah, we really do. And I cook the oatmeal in the morning for breakfast.
He cooks the oatmeal.
I do. I got that water down pretty good.
So
AJ, you have accomplished it. You said 11 years ago we first met.
Well, no, we actually met sooner than that. We didn't really, start.
Well, we had an interaction 11 years ago, which was, it was strange, to say the least. But, things have changed so much for you. Not only have you become comfortable with yourself, And I would assume with your relationship to Charles, as I have with Mary as time has gone on. But you've also become comfortable with yourself as a professional. Now, you've done a tremendous amount. But just look at the audience you have listening right now. And I know that has been transferred into a higher levels of self-worth in your mind. But you must be in a situation now. Here you are. Are you in your mid 50s?
I'm 60, 60 and a half.
Oh, here you are, 60 and a half. So you're just a kid. Right, Mary?
Yeah.
Just a kid. Here you are. You got your whole life ahead of you. What do you plan on doing? What would make you feel really good in terms of people writing and talking about you in the future? What do you hope to do?
Kind of like you. I just want people to say she said that told the truth, because I think I do tell the truth. And,
Yeah.
and so many people tell stories that aren't true, and just to make money. And potatoes are cheap, and that's the truth. Eat them and you'll be healthy and thin. And that's really the end of the story. And don't you get tired of having to say that over and over sometimes?
No, in a certain way I do, but it's the truth. The truth is the truth. And it's so easy to challenge the liars. The liars are easy to see. All right. So
people are saying have the McDougal's on every Sunday. Oh, so you never shy away from controversy. How do we answer the people saying, I hate to be as thin as you guys? That's what some of the people are commenting.
Well, I'm getting old. I'm, in my mid 70s. I hate to say, but that's elderly. And I don't need to carry around an extra 50 pounds. So, neither one of us are fat, nor are you, AJ. Part of what's going on here is sour grapes. You're too thin. You look like you have AIDS or cancer. Well, people who meet us new, who don't have these preconceived notions about what we used to weigh, think we look really good.
Yeah.
I mean,
I've never had a thin person tell me I'm too thin.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, it's the way it is. One thing I wanted to challenge you with, AJ, as far as your future goes, because I almost feel like, except that I'm not that old, almost like a father figure for you. I see where you could really make an impact. I want to challenge you with the fact that the most effective, popular, best-selling diet book authors over the past have not been professionals. They've not been doctors. They've been woodcutters like, what was that guy? Remember that guy? The woodcutter?
No.
Oh, I'll think of it in a minute. Anyway, they come from all kinds of backgrounds. I think the public is more readily able to accept the truth from somebody who they can relate to, like you, than say a scientist or a doctor. So you have all the possibilities, I think, for making a huge impact in the future, AJ. I just, I know if you keep your integrity and, you don't let people bother you. Take on the point of view. I'd rather be hated than ignored.
I'll just tell him.
Terrible.
I'm just going to tell him I'll stick Dr. McDougall on you. So both to Dr. and Mary McDougall, Dina wants to know, do you guys eat tofu and nuts and seeds and avocado?
Not much.
Well,
we do, but not much.
We eat avocados on our bean. We have like bean burritos almost every day for lunch.
Well, that's not bad. I wouldn't say every day, but we have bean burritos a lot. We have avocados
4 days a week,
and we have a whole cupboard of nuts up there. But
they're not eaten.
And we have. We occasionally have some rich fruits.
We have some tofu. I make some things with tofu in them, and I put chunks of tofu in the noodle soup.
Would you like this to be confession time?
Yeah.
Last night was Halloween. Do you know what I do on Halloween every year? Do you know I have 7 grandkids? And they all know, the ones that live in Santa Rosa, the ones that live in San Francisco, the ones that live here in Portland, all 7 of those grandkids know that Grandpa wants a Babe Ruth bar. And so the goal, and they have a little contest begun among themselves, is who can find the first Babe Ruth bar for Grandpa. And Grandpa eats it. Was that too much of a confession?
But you know what? I can make you a vegan version of it. I totally
can. But the problem is these vegan versions are almost as bad.
Shoot, we'd have.
No, you're just fooling yourself. And the problem is to see if I sit down with a vegan candy bar, I think I'm doing myself good, and I'd eat twice as much. at least with the Babe Ruth bar, I know I'm doing something bad, so I can control myself. Anyway, I would say our sinful natures to come out on Halloween with 1 Babe Ruth bar for me, And on our birthdays, when we have birthday cake, which is made of rich stuff. Yeah, but in our family, if you leave the birthday party, likely you're going to come home with a portion of a cake that started out this big, because nobody in the family really enjoys the cake. And so, the 7 grandkids and the 3 children and the 2 of us, we'll take and divide that cake and leave half of it left over.
They like putting the candles on and then
like
lighting the candles and blowing out the
The
candles.
ceremony.
Yeah, but eating the cake, nah, that's not.
We're so not used to rich foods, and that actually goes all the way to the grandkids. That we don't find these things pleasant. We find our comfort food, the things that we eat all the time, pleasant. Just like if you were to come over to our house and the grandkids were coming over, which they used to do before the pandemic. Mary would put on pea soup, the same pea soup that you make at home, and the kids, they love Grandma's pea soup. That's one of those memories that they'll have into their adulthood. That's one of those things they'll tell their grandkids if they have a planet to live on. They'll tell their grandkids that when they were little, they ate Grandma's pea soup, and it was so good. And I can hardly wait to. There are those kind of traditions and learning experiences you never forget. Start the kids out well.
It's funny, somebody's commenting that you eat the baby Ruth on Halloween and Dr. Esselstyn eats the Reese's peanut butter cup on New Year's Eve.
Oh, well, hey, look, remember that I've told you about the theory of hormesis, haven't I?
No.
Well, the theory of hormesis is this, is being a little bad is good. Okay, the idea is if you're a little bad, and I hate to tell this group this, because this may be permission for you to be really bad. It's not. The idea being that if you're a little bad, you keep your detoxifying systems active. Like, for example, you've probably heard that people who drink alcohol have less heart disease. The theory being, fitting into the theory of hormesis, that the alcohol stimulates the liver enzymes to be a little bit more active so that when they have to deal with the toxins in the food, they're better able to do that.
But it's only a little bit.
A little bit, right. The same thing with exercise. That the idea that exercise might be good for preventing heart disease will be a little bit of stress of exercise sets the body up for potential toxins. So I hope you enjoyed the theory of hormesis.
Hey, this is.
But I don't eat my Babe Ruth bar on Halloween because of that. I eat it because it's Halloween.
Hey, this is sort of an interesting question. Do you ever follow up on the Star McDougal'S to see that they're still towing the line?
Oh, yeah, all the time. And almost every Star McDougal'S stays in touch with us. Some die, but very, very seldom do they go off track. We just heard from Deb Tisak. In fact, she may start teaching for us in the program. We have a couple of people who are previous successes, of course. One fellow who owned a restaurant in Spain. Robert?
No.
Anyway, we're going to add Deb Tisak. Christopher. Yeah, Christopher, he became part of our practice 15 years ago. He owned a famous vegan restaurant, bed and breakfast in Spain. Anyway, he's involved in the 7-day or the 12-day program. He gives one of our very personal accounts. So, there's an example of somebody who we continually follow up with. Deb Tisak. She just wrote me, and I'd love to be able to show you her email.
Is her picture in the...
Yeah, it's on the Star McDougal'S.
Yeah.
Look under Star McDougal'S, Deb Tisak. You'll see how she was almost dead. Well, the way that I heard from Deb last week was she moved from Chicago to Austin. And she went to see a vegan diet doctor. She wanted to have somebody who would present to her the kind of medicine that she wanted. And she thought finding a vegan doctor would be the way to go. So she sought out this doctor in Austin, went to see her. And Deb starts telling her a little bit about her past history. And this doctor said, well, you probably haven't heard of him. I want you to know about Dr. McDougall. I read his book and I saved my father's life from heart disease. She says, see that book up there on the shelf? That's the Starch Solution. She says, oh, yeah, I have. Doctor said, oh, yeah, I have every member of my family read that. She says, look on page, I'm in the book. And this has been 35 years, at least, Deb and I have had a relationship. And she's going to, like Christopher, she's going to start one of our sessions during the 12-day program that bring a lot of comfort to people about long-term experience with eating well and taking good care of yourself. So yeah, we keep in contact with a lot of people.
That's fantastic. I've never seen your son, Patrick. What's he
Ah.
like? Is he handsome like the rest of the?
Oh, he's a very handsome guy. He's a chemist. He works for a subsidiary of Chevron. He has a PhD in chemistry. He went for training at Stanford, way postdoctorate, so he's well overtrained. And he's involved in a very successful career, has a lovely wife and 2 wonderful little boys. And we, as you know, like with other kids and family, we don't get to see them. Like
They live in the South Bay area.
Yeah.
And so we don't see them as often as we'd like either.
Yeah. But Zoom's worked out pretty well. The kids, they get tired of sitting in front of their screen for school, but they will set aside a little time for grandma and grandpa. Grandma reads them stories.
Well, there's one thing I like about the pandemic is it's brought the drive-in theater back. So we have a drive-in.
Oh, yes. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
But
so I'm enjoying that.
There's an overwhelming issue with this pandemic, and that is that we've been faced as a world with change. And people realize, and then all of a sudden problems that we were able to ignore, like, wildfires that are burning the entire West Coast, floods that are drowning the entire southeast of the U.S. We've been able to push these aside, but now with the COVID-19 and all the changes that society has gone through, we realize that we're facing change and we're never going to go back again to the way we were. Normal is nothing we even want, much less are ever going to attain. Normal's gone. We need to adapt to a new future, and that future requires you to be as healthy as possible, because there's going to be a lot of competition for space on Earth. And you best be one of those survivors. That's all I can say. You'll be competing with a whole bunch of viruses that don't want you on Earth. Like COVID-19 is the first one. With climate change and global warming, we got new ones coming up every week. Zika, Ebola, H1N1. Yeah. Hey, nature has so many things so many viruses and microbes that want you to leave planet Earth for. And the only way you're going to beat them is to be as healthy as possible, I assure you. And a little bit of public health and social distancing would be wise too. Hey, AJ, one of the things I commented to my son, who's a board certified internist and a professor at OHSU, is I said to him last night, we were over at their house, we were watching the Halloween parade where I got my babe Ruth Bar. We were over at the Halloween parade. We stay socially distanced. We stay in the driveway. We wear masks and so on. And I said, Craig, every year I get the flu and I'm sick for at least 6 weeks. Almost every year, not every year. And some years I've gotten sick 2 or 3 times. I said, son, if I knew it was this easy to avoid laying on my back for 2 weeks and being miserable for another 4 with whatever flu happens to be coming through that season, if I knew it was so easy to avoid it by just staying away from dirty people, I would have done it a long time ago.
And wearing a mask.
Yeah. I mean, we've learned all kinds of. I always knew that the flu came from a virus, but I never saw it, so I never believed it. Now I believe it.
I know you guys aren't going out now, but before you did, because you had moved to Portland from Santa Rosa, when you went out about town, did people recognize you in Portland?
Oh, wherever we go.
Yeah, once in a while, yes.
Wherever we used to go from Santa Rosa up to Portland, we'd get recognized. But of course, we went to vegetarian restaurants where people who knew us would likely to be. But it doesn't matter. I mean, we are of such a level of recognition that we get noticed every place you go. Yeah, it's okay. It's part of the job.
Yeah,
always thrilled. It makes me feel.
Always eat healthy food when we're out anyway, so we don't care if they see what we're eating.
Really, I don't really care. You won't catch me eating a dead animal.
What about Thanksgiving?
Well, Thanksgiving, it's going to be a very quiet Thanksgiving. We're not getting together at all. Just like Anthony Fauci, he's not seeing his 3 daughters. We have decided not to get together as a family. As far as what I'm going to eat, this is not.
I think I'll probably make mashed potatoes and gravy.
This is not my dead turkey year. I've had so much stresses and strains and changes that went on. I can't sacrifice a turkey this year. Maybe next year, but not this year.
I think this year we'll probably be home by ourselves.
Well, what I'm making for Thanksgiving is exactly what I'm teaching at the upcoming McDougall program. If you want to mention when it starts, I've been posting the link throughout the broadcast if people want to enroll.
Oh, good.
Well, AJ, we really look forward to your addition to the program. And, this is just the beginning.
Yeah.
We start a program next Friday night. Today is the 24th.
No, today's the 1st.
November 1st.
Boy, am I lost by a week. Okay, so we started probably
Friday.
Today is Sunday.
Yeah.
So in 5 days, we start a program.
Right.
Great.
And we have plenty of time for Dr. Lim to see you today or tomorrow or the next day to get you started. Corey and Tiffany will be right there in your kitchen.
But you always say that in your kitchen. They do it virtually in your kitchen.
Yeah, but I mean, good grief. It's just like we're together now. I mean, Mary could take you over and teach you how to make mashed potatoes. And one of our goals is to make sure you have enough food to get started during the week. And, whereas in our residential programs, we used to serve you all the food. That was a service and a disservice, because when you went home, you didn't have the wait staff. You didn't have the chefs that prepared the food for you. But yeah, we're ready to get started. If you want to join, just give us a call. Give us a call on the 800 number, and we'll get you enrolled. We'll have Dr. Lim see you right away. We'll get you off your drugs. We will. We will. Sick people take drugs. Healthy people don't. Sick people have abdomens littered with scars. Healthy people don't. Sick people have their calendars littered with appointments with their doctor and various tests. Healthy people don't. Get out of the business. Get out of the business. And the reason you're in the business is because of the food. You got to fix the food. It's almost a guarantee, folks. It is. The results are so consistent. The first book Mary and I wrote was not called Heal and Stay Healthy or How to Eat Good to Prevent Heart Disease. It was called Making the Change, because we knew back then the problem is not whether you would get well or not. You always get well. If you're eating the American diet, which makes you sick, you always get well. Just like if you quit smoking, you stop coughing, and you quit drinking, you stop falling down. The problem was whether or not we can get you to do this, to make the change. And we've been working hard. We've been giving lectures all over the world, holding weekend seminars, writing books, doing free webinars as you do, AJ. Locking people up for 10 days and charging them $6,000. And now what we're doing is we're not locking them up. Instead, we're coming into their home and we're charging them less than half as much for a better experience. So anyway, we can get you in by Friday if you'd like to come.
And Cynthia says, do you run the program on Zoom? I'll keep posting the link. If people.
Oh yeah, we run it on Zoom. Absolutely, it's a great format. Zoom is. Mary's invested a little bit in Zoom. It's been a good idea.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be something if somebody was not following and you actually showed up at their house? I mean, not during the pandemic, but could you imagine that?
Never know.
Yeah. Oh, this has been so fun. This has been so fun talking to you guys. You're welcome back. I mean, we have over 1,000 people watching live.
Well, folks, we want to give you a very positive message, and that is, the future. The future is possible. A great future for our country, for the world, and for you as people and families and communities. I mean, the future is there. It's just a matter of deciding you're going to do it. We have all kinds of crossroads ahead of us. You see it. I mean, good grief, we have an election in 3 days. 2 days. 2 days. 2 days. I mean, if you can't see the opportunity to make different decisions in the next couple of days, then you're not paying attention. The way I want you to look at it is we have a world to save, and we can do it. But, we have to make the right decisions. And it would start by you gaining as much good health and attractive appearance as you possibly can, so that you can be a functional member of the future. I have to be optimistic because I really believe it's true. I believe we can save this place, but it's not going to be easy. Just like I believe the right person will win the election on Tuesday, but it ain't going to be easy, folks. I ain't going to tell you who that right person is.
Well, I'll tell you, talking to you guys have been easy. This hour and a little bit more has just flown by. So thank you so much. I think
vote. Isn't that what they say? Vote.
Yeah, absolutely.
Vote.
Yes.
Just by good grief.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, I am so honored to be part of your program and just to have the chance to talk to you now. So thank you so much. And thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Please come back in 15 minutes. We have another wonderful show. We have a registered dietitian named Lily Correa, who is doing an amazing cooking demo, and a third show today at 2 p.m. when none other than Dr. Gustavo Tolosa is coming back with another cooking demo and a piano recital. Dr. McDougall and Mary, you guys are the best. And I still look forward to being part of the program. I cannot wait.
we too. It's been a growing relationship, AJ, and we certainly value it very much. Thank you.
Right. Well, anytime you guys want to come back, you know what to do. You have an open.
All right. We'll do that.
All right.
Particularly if I need to contest with some people. I'm getting a little bored now. I need people to contest with.
I'm telling you, people are saying this is better than church. You should just come on every Sunday. So.
All right.
All right.
Well, we'll see. We'll do it anytime you like.
Thanks. Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.